Day one took forever. It literally felt like the longest day of my life. To not be able to listen to music while I was working, especially working from home, that was actually painful. Hey roomies, today I want to share with you my experience of disconnecting from all media for a week and why I want to incorporate it into my routine. First, I'll tell you what I did, and then I'll share with you the good, bad, and the surprising of the experience. So first, I think it's important to explain exactly what I did. So I committed to a Monday to Friday. I had a regular working week and no compulsory extracurricular activities, and I disconnected from all media. Now, of course, it's impossible to disconnect from absolutely all media because I can't control the music in shops or billboards. But what I don't mean is just social media, because I think people hear that when I say that. I do mean media in a broader sense. So that was TV, music, books, podcasts, social media included, and that includes YouTube. And I also took some time off Googling. You'll be surprised. It might just be me, but you'll be surprised how much time is spent on Google, Googling absolutely everything that comes to mind. As a Christian, I had a decision to make about worship music because I listened to that quite a lot. And I decided that was also included in the No Media Week. So let me go on and explain why I did this. So there are three reasons why I decided to do this. Two of them I'm sure you can relate to, and one of them was definitely circumstantial. The first one was that my screen time was alarming. When I say alarming, I can't even remember the exact figures, but what I do know is when I saw them, I was not impressed. Thinking about all the other things that I needed to get done and needed to be doing, it felt insane that I was spending this much time on my phone. The second reason is productivity anxiety. Now, I don't know if that's an official term because I'm just putting the two words together and explaining and using that to explain what I was feeling. But I'm definitely someone who consumes a lot of content around, just hacking your life and being efficient and doing all the things. And actually, I felt like I was consuming a lot of that content, but so much so that I wasn't actually able to apply much of it. And that was giving me proper anxiety. It's almost like, 10 things to do to make your life better, and you've only done one. And now you're going on to learn the 11th and the 12th, but you've still only done one. And it just feels like even that started to feel like a to-do list when it was supposed to be helpful. I was just consuming so much of it. And whether it was, faith or personal development or career, like all the different categories and all the ways in which there's stuff to do, it just felt like learning more was becoming overwhelming because I hadn't yet applied what I already had learned. The third thing, and remember I mentioned that this was circumstantial, so this was personal to me in that time, but I absolutely don't think that takes away from this practice being something that is worth putting into a routine, is that I had a big decision to make. I had a big decision to make, and I felt like part of my unsettledness was just not even knowing what I thought and what I felt about the situation, asking God, speaking to God about it, and also feeling like life and my mind was so noisy that even if he spoke, I wasn't sure that I'd be able to hear. And so I really had to take a step back. I really had to take a step back from all of the opinions, all of the ideas, all of the personal experiences of others that I was constantly consuming. Some of them were contradictory to each other. And it was just a bit of a mess, to be honest. But I would be the one having to make this decision and live with it. So I needed space. I needed space and I needed time. I needed to get in tune with myself. Now, not to get all the truth about hip hop on you, and a shout out to you if you know that reference. And I don't even say that in a shady way, because the truth about hip hop was definitely a catalyst in me becoming a Christian. Yes, I was petrified out of my mind after watching it. But for me, it was definitely a nudge in the right direction, because music at the time for me was a form of escapism for, teenage Shakira. And at some point it had definitely become an idol. So it was really good to watch, but also I was very scared. But yeah, not to get all truth about hip hop on you, but we really are being conditioned socially. Like, you already know that, I'm sure. You know it in theory. I've got a teenage daughter and I'm always hounding on about how she is being informed by the things that she's seeing and hearing and reading. And I don't know if she believes me. And I'm trying to get her to see it in an everyday sense, so that she can know that it's happening. But actually, sometimes I feel like I'm more concerned about her young mind than I am recognizing that still my not so young mind is also kind of in that space and susceptible to being conditioned. If you were sat down and you were interviewed and said, do you believe XYZ? You'd probably say no, because you don't think consciously that you believe it. But unconsciously, actually, when it comes to living your actual life, you'll see the way in which some of these things play out. So I don't have anything in particular in mind, but off the top of my head, I'm sure self-image, body image for women continues to be, will always be a big thing, a big space in which there is social conditioning going on. But obviously, even in terms of, lifestyle or money or, what and who brings value, what is a good career or what is success. But there's so many ways in which the world has its own version of what is good and what is true. And then our faith is taking us in pretty much always the opposite direction. So we have to be mindful, guys. We have to be mindful to check our motives. But as I said, it's really difficult at the time to know what is going in, what is getting in, what is sowing seeds in your heart. So as we start to recognize this more, there are definitely benefits to spending time away from media. And this is not a legalistic thing. This is not like, hard and fast rules. Social media, taking time off social media is no longer enough. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I absolutely felt that even the songs I had been listening to, even the things that I was watching, even the ideas and thoughts in books that I was reading and podcasts, there was just so much information coming at me, and so many ideologies and ways of thinking coming at me, whether through entertainment or, the nonfiction. There's just so much coming at us, and we have to fight for silence. So I've written down a list of the good, bad, and the surprising. I was going to say ugly, but no, the surprising of that week. And I'm going to share the highlights with you. Okay, so let's start with the good. So the first thing is I got more done because I had more time. And that's just simple maths. You're doing less of just stuff that you're doing for the sake of doing. And that means that you have more time for the stuff that you actually should be and need to be doing. I also got to spend more intentional time with God. There was no rushing off or needing to get a million things done or starting to watch a bit of an episode and then being there 3 episodes later. I had all the time that I needed. And one thing that is important here, because remember I mentioned that I wasn't listening to worship music at this time. It actually gave me the opportunity to sing to God with my own voice. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that must hit different for God, just having you singing your own words or someone else's with your own voice, and not getting sucked into, just listening to the worship music rather than being the vessel and actually being the worshiper in the situation. So that was really good. You realize how many songs you have stored up in the memory bank that probably not being sang on a regular basis in, churches or spaces, communal spaces anymore. So it was nice to be singing some old school tunes and to really just be thinking about what I was singing rather than singing along. Or like I said, just passively listening. I had more time to think. I encourage this analysis in my video around comparison and a victim mentality. I remember saying I was able to catch some interesting thoughts actually because my mind was otherwise quite quiet, so I could pick up on things that might have been missed when I was in noisier times. But yes, I had more time to think actively. I made time in the mornings and in the evenings. If I was working from home, also at lunchtimes, set a timer for 15 minutes and do nothing but just sit there and let your thoughts play. I would then record what I had thought about. And it was really a good exercise to see what was most occupying my mind, what things I was concerned with, what things I was worried about, and just, hear what was going on inside. Ultimately, I reflected on everything I'd written for all of the 15-minute bursts during the entire week on the Friday. And when I say to you, I could see so clearly exactly what I was thinking, exactly what I was feeling, and exactly what needed to happen next. I feel like I got so much clarity from what was happening in there, and I could see what God was saying in the midst of it as well. And it was just so helpful. I've never done anything like that prior to, I'm not one for meditation or anything like that. I'm going to say I have nothing against it, obviously. And when I say meditation, I mean Christian, not emptying your mind type stuff that you get with some new age teaching. But I had never actually either had the time or made the time to just get in touch with me. It's important to say that it was absolutely silent during those 15 minutes as well. And I had no expectation. So I wasn't looking to think anything or judging anything I was thinking. I was just observing. And sometimes I would take the notes during if I felt like I wouldn't be able to remember the amount of stuff I thought about at the end. So it wasn't uninterrupted 15 minutes, but it was definitely quiet and contained 15 minutes. And I took notes on my phone. And then, like I said, at the end of the week, I had all the notes together. I also got used to quietness. There's always noise, usually. I'm definitely one to have something or the other playing while I get ready for work, on my commute, while I'm at work if I'm not in a meeting, then on the way back, then while I'm cooking, then need to watch something or listen to something while I'm eating. And then literally, you start one episode and you're 10 episodes in and it's time for bed. Even when I got to bed, I found that my mind was so noisy that I needed white noise to just settle and go to sleep. So I got used to using white noise just as a norm. But during this week, I found that I didn't need the white noise because my mind was already so quiet and so still. There was nothing being processed because I wasn't consuming anything. So remember I talked about, having a list of 10 things or 11, 12 that you still need to do, but then taking in more information before you've even done anything with that. It was almost like I was constantly processing something because I was constantly learning or taking in something from external sources. And even when I went to bed at night, all of that noise would kind of be buzzing around me. It's not bad noise necessarily, but you can tell how much was in there to the point where I can't even just shut it all off to go to bed without the support of a neutralizing noise. Okay, so the bad things. Day one took forever. It literally felt like the longest day of my life. To not be able to listen to music while I was working, especially working from home, that was actually painful. It literally felt like the day was dragging, guys. But I made it. I made it in the end. And you can expect to be that uncomfortable, right? If you're used to the level of noise and activity that I've just explained, you can absolutely expect to, get withdrawal symptoms from that before it becomes comfortable. So another thing was that there was no clear demarcation for my day. So usually, especially when I'm working from home, I'm sat at the desk and then I log off when work is done, and then I transfer to the sofa, or if I need to cook, to the kitchen and then to the sofa. But there was a sense in which moving space and changing screen was the okay, you're done working and now you're chilling. But because there was no obvious change, it was really hard to, when I was working from home, feel like, the working day was done. So yeah, I really struggled with that sometimes, but it got better as the week went on. One thing I expected to experience that didn't really feel like it happened, which is why this ended up on the bad list, is to see more. So, in the morning when you get on the tube and literally 99% of people are on their phones. Yeah, I expected that because I wouldn't be listening to anything or consuming anything, I'd be paying more attention to the world around me when I was out. So I'd be paying more attention and seeing what was happening with people, making eye contact, maybe smiling at someone. But yeah, that didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is that I was probably still in my phone. So I was either doing some kind of work, getting some work done, or reading the Bible app on my phone. Now for what was surprising. I was surprised that not listening to music didn't actually result in me getting more work done. I thought that listening to music was a distraction. So there's lots around, whether it's possible to actually multitask or your brain stops one thing to do the other. But I thought listening to music would show up as a distraction and actually I'd get more done while I'm doing work by not having music playing at the same time. But I don't think I did. Another thing that was surprising is that batting away thoughts that I didn't want to welcome was not effective. So bear in mind, my mind is now quieter than it's ever been before. And so I'm also hearing the stuff that's in there that I'm not best pleased about. And to deal with them, now that there's so much empty space, I'm thinking, well, I can just bat it away and then it will go. That was not the case. In fact, there was one evening that I tried to distract myself from the thought I didn't want to have by distracting my mind. So I started reciting the alphabet backwards, which is very difficult. You should try it. It's actually fun to try, but also, very difficult to do the first time. I think it gets better the more times you do it. But the point is, even reciting, the alphabet backwards in my head did not kind of stop this thought from reappearing as soon as I was done. So what I realized is that it was more effective to engage with the thought. And by engage, I don't mean agree with it. I mean engage with it, inquire, have a conversation and see what's happening. Maybe challenge those thoughts with the truth, whether it's, the truth in your lived reality or the truth of God's word, depending on, what it is the thought actually is. But yeah, I found that was more effective than just trying to bat the thought away or trying to distract myself, because I could only be distracted for so long before it was kind of popping up again. So it was always lurking because it wasn't being dealt with. So that's one thing actually that I learned that was really good. Just even as a Christian, I think there's so much in the scriptures about our thought life, and the temptation can be to like, think things that you're like, oh, don't want to think that, and just quickly like try to, shove it somewhere. But like that cupboard that you shove everything into and force to close is always threatening to burst open. And then you're always on the lookout for when it's going to burst into your thoughts. So actually engaging with it, dialoguing, praying also about it is super, 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 super helpful. So that's one massive thing actually that I took away from that week, apart from, getting clarity about the decision I wanted to make and then just having quietness in my mind. I learned how to navigate unwanted thoughts. Another thing I was very surprised about is that on the Saturday, when I was now allowing myself to consume media, I actually ended up binging a show on Netflix that very day. Now, you would think that after 1 week of super chill and super mellow vibes, that I would be controlled, self-controlled with the consumption of media. But actually, that's probably the temptation, that if you're not intentional, old habits die hard, as they say. And so you could find yourself in a situation where you've just, come off everything and now you're diving headfirst back into it all. So that's the good, the bad, and the surprising about my week disconnecting from social media. Now, I would definitely say that the pros outweigh the cons, and I would recommend it to you. I would recommend that you make the time. Don't try to find it. So I mentioned that I had no compulsory extracurricular activities that week. But of course, I had some stuff that I chose not to engage in because I wanted to get that quiet time. And I know we think we're being productive by consuming more and learning all the things about all the things. But honestly, consuming can actually be so counterproductive, and it can actually slow you down. It's actually okay to disconnect. I used to think that I needed to get a handle on my insecurities and sort myself out if I felt like I wanted to take some time away from social media. But that's absolutely not the case. The level at which we are peering into each other's lives is high. That's it from me. As always, this is a conversation, so I want to hear from you. Would you do a no media week? And if you did, what do you think would be the hardest thing for you to give up during that week? As always, I will be praying for you as I pray for myself, and I'm praying that God will help us prioritize the things that are most important so that we can live a truly productive and fruitful life. Thanks for watching, and see you in the comments.